If you've ever stared at the Mona Lisa and felt like she knows something you don't, you're not alone. For more than 500 years, Leonardo da Vinci has resisted simple labels. Was he a painter who dabbled in science? A scientist who happened to paint? An inventor trapped in the wrong century? But Leonardo da Vinci wasn't great because he was talented. He was great because he refused to stop noticing things most people walk past. In a world that pushes us to move faster, his life offers a quieter lesson. Wonder isn't a childish phase. It's a discipline. Leonardo was born on April the 15th, 1452, near the small town of Vinci, outside Florence. He was the son of a notary and a local woman, and he grew up largely outside the rigid educational paths of the elite, which, in hindsight, may have been an advantage. Because Leonardo's earliest education didn't begin with Latin grammar or philosophy. It began with observation. He watched how water curled around stones. He studied how shadows stretched at dusk. He noticed how emotion moved through faces before words ever arrived. Most children are told to stop staring. Leonardo never did. He learned early to trust what he saw, and that habit shaped everything that followed. As a teenager, Leonardo was sent to Florence and apprenticed in the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio. It wasn't just a painting studio, it was a workshop built for problem-solving. Art mixed freely with engineering. Apprentices sculpted, painted, designed theatrical machinery, experimented with materials, and solved practical challenges. Leonardo absorbed it all. He learned how light rests on fabric, how muscles pull beneath skin, how geometry gives structure to beauty. He excelled, not simply because he was gifted, but because he stayed with problems longer than anyone else. Florence sharpened his skills, but Leonardo wanted room to expand. In his late 20s, Leonardo traveled to Milan, seeking employment under the city's ruler, Ludovico Sforza. His approach was unusual. Leonardo presented himself first as a military engineer, someone who could design bridges, fortifications, and machines. Only near the end did he casually mention that he could also paint. Milan offered scale. Here, Leonardo designed elaborate spectacles, sketched mechanical systems, studied architecture, and filled notebooks with ideas that still feel remarkably modern. It all fed the same curiosity. Leonardo wasn't switching careers. He was refining a single way of thinking. In the 1490s, Leonardo received a commission to paint the Last Supper on the wall of a monastery dining hall in Milan. Rather than depicting a static religious scene, he chose a moment of emotional rupture, the instant Jesus announces that one of his disciples will betray him. Every figure reacts differently: shock, anger, confusion, denial. The scene feels human before it feels holy. But Leonardo made a risky decision. Traditional fresco painting required speed. Paint had to be applied to wet plaster before it dried. Leonardo wanted time to refine expressions, layer subtle shadows, and revise. So he experimented. The result was visually extraordinary and structurally fragile. The painting began deteriorating far sooner than expected, requiring centuries of restoration. Leonardo's refusal to settle produced something unforgettable, but it also carried consequences. Even so, The Last Supper changed how people understood narrative, emotion, and realism. It wasn't just seen, it was felt. Leonardo never believed knowledge belonged in neat compartments. To paint a hand, he studied its bones and tendons. To draw a bird, he studied air and motion. To understand beauty, he measured proportion. Around 1490, he created the drawing we now call the Vitruvian Man, a human figure set within a circle and a square, exploring ideal proportions through anatomy and mathematics. This wasn't about perfection. It was about understanding how fragile balance really is. Today, we often talk about creativity and logic as opposites. Leonardo didn't. To him, art was investigation. An investigation, when pursued deeply enough, became art. Political upheaval forced Leonardo to leave Milan in 1499. He traveled, worked for various patrons, and continued filling pages with questions rather than conclusions. Eventually, he returned to Florence. There, in the early 1500s, he began a portrait that would become the most recognizable image in history, the Mona Lisa. Leonardo likely started it around 1503, and what makes it remarkable isn't only how it looks, but how long he stayed with it. Evidence suggests he continued refining the painting for years, possibly until near the end of his life. Leonardo didn't treat masterpieces as finished products. He treated them as living problems. The Mona Lisa doesn't demand attention. It doesn't overwhelm. It lingers. Soft transitions. Edges that dissolve. A face that feels like it's thinking. You aren't just looking at a woman. You're watching curiosity made visible. Leonardo began far more than he finished, and people noticed. He was criticized for it even in his own time. But this wasn't carelessness. It was exploration. Leonardo wasn't racing toward completion. He was chasing understanding. He wasn't asking, "Am I good at this?" He was asking, "What happens if I look again?" Not every path led to completion, but every path sharpened his vision. And the works he did leave behind reshaped how humanity understood itself. Sometimes the value isn't only in what you finish, it's in how deeply you're willing to follow a question. In his later life, Leonardo accepted an invitation from King Francis I of France. He moved to the countryside near Amboise, living at Clos-Lucé, bringing notebooks, drawings, and paintings with him. Picture it. An aging thinker walking through gardens, not rushing, not proving anything. Still curious, still paying attention. Leonardo da Vinci died on May 2, 1519, and was laid to rest in the Chapel of Saint-Hubert at Amboise, where his life of inquiry quietly came to an end. By then, he was no longer just a man of talent. He had become a symbol of sustained curiosity. Leonardo's story isn't about genius as an accident of birth. It's about posture, paying attention, asking better questions, remaining humble before complexity. Leonardo didn't treat the world like a backdrop. He treated it like a manuscript, filled with margins worth reading. In the end, he didn't leave us answers. He left us a habit, attention. And that may be his greatest gift. Because you don't need to be a Renaissance master to live with curiosity. You only need to slow down long enough to notice what others pass by. If this inspired you to look a little closer, you're always welcome here. And remember, it's illumentary, my dear viewer.